What's up, folks? I was trying not to wait so long for my next video, so here you go. Those that follow me day to day on Instagram, I'm s.g.holmes, know that I like to test gear, I like to play with different stuff, hence pretty good channel, I guess, to tune into in terms of reviews, because I play with just about anything I can get my hands on. So I thought I'd come to you. I did some testing on broadheads this deer season, and particularly a mechanical that heard a lot of good things about, saw some good reviews before, thought I'd give them a try. Here comes Sevr. So I decided for my deer season to try a Sevr 2.0. These are the titanium 2.0s. And you know, I'll talk just a little about today with my real life experience hunting with them. I took 3 deer, and we'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. What I like about them, and maybe just something to look out for if you decide to go with these, and then my takeaway. So stay tuned and we'll get there in a second. All right, so real life experience first. I took 3 deer with a Sevr 2.0 titanium, 2 does and a buck. The good thing about where I live in terms of testing and filling my freezer, because that's the ultimate goal, is that we have a very liberal deer season here. Essentially, you can shoot a doe a day and 3 bucks per year with your license. So with that said, I looked for particular opportunities where I could really test this new mechanical broadhead. One was a doe standing broadside, and really that's not a big test. I don't think there's many broadheads out there that would fail under a very nice and true broadside shot, and this one surely didn't fail the test either. Great penetration, complete pass through. Blood trail was enormous, and recovery was within 50 to 60 yards. Flawless in terms of execution and recovery. The second deer I took was a hard quartering away shot on a doe, and this one really I kind of took on purpose to specifically test how mechanicals hold up. Most mechanicals, or there are a lot of mechanicals I should say, that have the tendency to deflect. So this design in particular is rear deploying. See if it will, there we go, rear deploying, broadhead on a silicone ring. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, most broadheads, when they hit a blade, you have the tendency for the arrow to kick out. Well, these have a pivoting blade design. So if it hits a bone, it does one of these numbers. So again, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but on a hard quartering away, when you have the tendency to hit a rib, a shoulder, arrow deflection can happen, and it does happen. This particular experience was a complete pass through, great trail. Again, recovery was within 60 to 75 yards. I love it. Lastly was a buck, pretty big buck. It was a slight quartering away shot, and he was about a 5-year-old deer, so real thick hide and pretty tough. And again, slight quartering away. Had a pass through. Here's the exact broadhead that I used, and you'll notice that this blade is bent. You can see it there. So the only thing that I could really think about is, as this broadhead passed through, it probably hit a bone or something like that. The blade kicked out, but again, it passed through, and I thought that was pretty cool. So you would expect deflection or anything like that when you start to hit a big thick bone or anything like that, and these really perform quite well. Again, recovery was a little longer for that, but within 100 yards, and I'll take that any day, especially in our thick Alabama woods. Blood trails were amazing, and overall, really impressed with real life results. So here's what I like about this broadhead. I talked about the pivoting blade design, right? So it's rear deploying, which most of your broadheads out there are, with the exception of maybe some Grim Reapers and those types of things. But that pivoting blade design to get around bone, I really like, and that's what I tested and was the most skeptical about. And that's what I typically am with most mechanicals, is your penetration, deflection issues and things like that. And this broadhead really passes the test with flying colors in my book. Real results speak for themselves. You know, I would give it an A+ for that. The other thing is the titanium ferrule. You know, again, these are both broadheads. I used one twice and the other one once. You know, they both spin true. Titanium's extremely tough alloy, and you know how I feel about titanium anyway. I really like them. So, you know, I think that that's awesome. It's reusable. So on these blades, I'd, you know, buy a pack of blades, actually have some on the way. I'll simply replace them out and run them for next time. The other thing that I think is really cool on this broadhead is practice mode. So practice mode essentially has, you know, a screw that you screw down and it locks the blades in, so that, you know, if you want to test to see how the flight on it is, you know, you can practice with them. And I'll tell you, you know, I used it a couple times. I'm not, you know, I think on a mechanical, most fly really, really nicely. You don't have anything to kind of catch wind or planing or anything like that with a fixed. So I found them, you know, to fly very true, also very forgiving, which I'll talk about in a second with, you know, the mechanical route, if that's something you decide to go with. The last thing is silicone, the silicone rubber band retention. So there's a band that goes around the broadhead here, and that's what holds the blades in. Some people might not like that, but I will tell you, I like it for a variety of reasons. But first and foremost is it holds the blades in true, and you're not relying on a collar. And I've had some issues with collars, and you probably know what I'm talking about. And then, you know, also there's cams that can, that the blades sometimes will lock in. There's some companies that use a cam system as well. And, you know, for the most part, I would say they're probably okay. I had one particular instance though that I came to full draw. I think one of the blades kind of got caught on a twig and the cam system let go. So essentially I had a deployed broadhead sitting on the end of my bow. I had to let down, and of course, you know, the animal ran off at that point. But that silicone ring, you know, holds it in regardless, and I think does a very good job of retention. You know, of course, if you shoot one and, you know, the silicone, you know, pops off, you have to buy some new bands. But when you get a pack of Sevrs, it does come with some silicone band. And keep in mind, I'm saying silicone and not rubber. So those of you that have had, you know, rubber band retention systems in the past, rubber degrades very quickly. Silicone does not. So I think, you know, Sevr does a really good job of, you know, giving you all quality parts. You know, I think that that's a plus. So here's something to look out for though. So that with that retention system, the you know, the rubber bands, the way it's getting deployed is, you know, essentially from the front here, right? So as you put it into a quiver, you have to make sure that your quiver will kind of accept that. So if you have a foam quiver, and you have to, you know, make your own type of, you know, entry hole, that's something you're probably going to have to, you know, do yourself. I shot this head on a Matthews quiver. I think it was their low pro quiver, and, you know, it had a little area that I just had to make sure, be cognizant of, like when I put it in, I'm putting in with, you know, with the slots, holds it just fine. Whenever I pull it out, pulling it out really isn't an issue on these, because that's not how really it deploys. The other quiver that I tried on with my PSE on the Omen was a tight spot quiver, and I didn't have any issues on that. Again, you just, you know, have to be cognizant of, you know, the front of the quiver where it's going in. But that was just, you know, maybe something to consider, that your quiver system, before you get out and go hunt, just, you might want to test that and make sure that it works. Sevr does have a quiver that you know, tight spot they've worked with, and they have one specifically designed for this broadhead. So you're welcome to check that out, but I've not really had issues with the two different quivers that I tested for. So the big takeaway, you got all the positives of a mechanical head. So what are those? You have a huge wound channel, lots of blood, and that is good for tracking. You have a very forgiving flight. What I mean by forgiving is, when this thing is in flight, that's essentially the aerodynamics of it is, it's basically a field point. So you're going to get the accuracy of field point, but there's also one thing, and that's forgiveness of a mechanical. So You'll notice with a fixed head that your form and your bow tune have to be very good, 100% in my view. So, you know, if you torque a little bit under pressure, or you've got gloves on and you know you think your bow hand is good but it isn't, or you know your release isn't you know what it's supposed to be, or maybe your bow, you went traveling and your bow got a little bit out of tune, or your rest got bumped a little bit, you know, certainly that can affect all arrows, mechanical, fixed or not. But I guarantee you a fixed, and there's some videos out there that have tested it, a fixed head will definitely plane or show up more in those types of situations versus a mechanical head. You can, you know, you can get away with almost a slightly out of tune bow. I don't advise that, but with a mechanical versus a fixed. So I think there's a lot of forgiveness that comes with these. And you know, again, the penetration issue, the negatives that can sometimes happen of a mechanical, I don't really think you will have that issue here, because again, I've tested that hard quartering away, slight quartering away issue. One clearly hit bone and still had a pass through. So, you know, I think you have a lot of positives of a fixed head and a lot of the positives of a negative of the mechanical without having a negative. So I think that is pretty cool. Again, I tested these on deer this year. I think that I will probably try a 1.5. So they have the titanium 1.5 that I will try this September on elk. So let's see how that goes. Pretty excited, pretty stoked to give it a go. But all in all, the big takeaway for me is these are a phenomenal head, probably one of the best heads I've ever played with and tested. Again, I'm skeptical of mechanicals in general, but these were just really top notch. So I can give them a green light, 2 thumbs up, excellent head. Again, hey, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate all your support. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what head you used this past season, or if you're changing something up, what do you plan on using this coming season? I'd love to hear from you. Go follow me on Instagram. I'm s.g.holmes for more day-to-day stuff. And as always, please like, please subscribe, comment below, and remember, aim small, miss small.